Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm a journalist, author, interviewer and broadcaster who's interviewed roughly 1,400 celebs over a 30-year period for nearly all major media outlets in Ireland. But here's the thing. I wouldn't have become an interviewer were it not for the fact that back in 1985 I pretended to be one, simply so I could meet and talk with one of my music heroes, Leonard Cohen. And afterwards, I was left feeling so transcendent, I decided right away that I must become an interviewer if only to track down more of my music heroes to talk with. And happily, gigs I got, such as being the main music interviewer for the Irish Times between the years 1990 and 2000, meant that as part of all those acts I did talk with to fill my music interview slot every week, many were my music heroes. Although I use that phrase lightly in the case of the subject of the podcast you're about to hear, Neil Sedaka. I simply loved many of the man's recordings. So when I got a chance to do even a 15-minute phone interview with the guy in 1990, I was happy to do so. And we did, by the way, do a more in-depth interview after Sedaka arrived in Ireland. But this was just a chat to help, in part, promote his upcoming gigs. By the way, if you want to read the articles I wrote out of both my conversations with Neil Sedaka, check joejacksoninterviewer.com. Hello?
Yes.
Neil Sedaka, please.
Just one moment, please.
Thank you.
Hold on, please. You're coming.
Thank
Hello?
you. Hello there.
Hello? Who am I talking to?
You're talking to Joe Jackson from the Irish Times.
Hi, Joe. I was expecting your call.
Sorry if I'm a couple of minutes early.
That's okay.
All right.
How's the weather in Ireland?
Today is pretty grey, but it's been quite nice otherwise.
Yes, Los Angeles has been a little bit overcast and chilly.
All right.
Yes.
I only know LA when it's really warm. I was only there once, so I can hardly conceive of it being anything other than beautifully hot.
We are very surprised. I'm a New Yorker, but I'm very surprised. It's been consistently cold for the last 3 weeks and
All right.
Heavy rain.
Oh, okay. All right, before we start the interview, I have about a dozen questions. A personal thanks. Some of the first records I ever bought were yours, and I'm sure you hear that all the time, but it happens to be true.
Well, thank you. It's always nice to hear.
And my dad, I think I remember you wrote a song called The World I Threw Away.
That's right.
Yeah, my father had that on a Johnny Mathis album, and it was one of his favourites.
Oh, how nice.
So
Yes.
it was one of the least known, but it meant a hell of a lot to him, because I lost a love affair.
Oh, yes, it painted a very vivid picture. I remember the song well.
Yeah, about standing outside the person's door when she's with somebody else.
That's right.
Okay.
Down the street and following to the, seeing the silhouette on the
Yeah.
window.
Yeah. Great stuff. Okay. So, for the interview for the Irish Times, you know we're a very literary race. Okay? Don't you?
Yes.
We're the word that gave the word Yeats. So how on earth could you put music to a lyric like Rama Lama Ding Ding Dong, I'm related to Old King Kong?
Oh, I think that was a very cute Howie Greenfield lyric. It was a very amusing song. I thought it was very clever.
Right.
It was not a success in the United States. I was a little bit surprised, but the British Isles have very good taste, and it was a hit there in 1959.
Right. Was there, I know that around 1956, I'd read that Arthur Rubinstein chose you to play on a radio show?
Yes, I was a student of the Juilliard School of Music, which is one of our fine conservatories in New York. And when I was 16 or so, I entered a piano competition in New York City of all the high school students that played the piano.
Right.
And I was chosen by Arthur Rubinstein as the winner of that competition. I got to play on our classical station, WQXR.
Right. Was there any inbuilt tension within you against playing rock? Any kind of classical snobbery?
Not really. As a matter of fact, I used to cut school at the end and go to the Apollo Theater to see Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin. I was very well-rounded as a musician.
Right.
Even though I have never abandoned classical music, I was never a snob.
Right. Steve Scholes signed you. Yeah?
That's right.
And I mean, we all know he signed Elvis. I've talked to people like Sam Phillips, who basically said that rock and roll in the South, coming more from a folk base, we'd say, than a classical European base, that those people may have regarded people in the North, New York, the kind of Tin Pan Alley extensions, as the enemy. Would you have been aware of those kind of divisions?
No, I never felt that. There were musical divisions to some degree, certainly the California sound, the Motown sound, the Southern sound, but we were a very valid contribution to rock and roll in New York. My goodness, me and Howie Greenfield and Carole King and Jerry Goffman and Cynthia Weil and Barry Mann, Lee Greenwich and Jeff Barry.
Yeah.
Some of the great rock and roll standards came out of New York.
Right. Well, you also had the Dion and the Doo-Wop and the early black groups and all that stuff way back in 54, 55, 56.
Yes, I wrote for many of them. I wrote for Laverne Baker and Clyde McFadden, Dinah Washington, and of course the doo-wop music really, I think, came out of New York,
right,
basically. And I was with a doo-wop group called the Tokens.
All right, you arranged and composed and directed that, I believe.
That's right.
Well, would you have been working when you listed some of those artists there? That sounds like the Atlantic stable.
That's exactly right, Joe. You have a very good recall. I wrote for many of the Atlantic people. Jerry Wexler and Ahmed Erdogan were some of my early mentors.
Right. You know, I mean, another thing I've heard people in the South, and our reading of the divisions there, was that the independent labels, be they Sun or Chess in Chicago, that they all moved the kind of power base away from New York. And you were working in the Brill Building, which would have been an extension of Tin Pan Alley. Were you aware of kind of dimensions like that to the whole story?
At what year? What years are you talking?
In the late 50s, when, you know, the way Tin Pan Alley had dominated popular music maybe since 1911. And suddenly in the mid-50s, you started getting other pockets in America that broke down that domination.
Yes, well, competition is always good. I was as much a fan as I was a songwriter and singer.
Right.
So I used to listen to a lot of Southern records and enjoy them.
Right.
And they were, I'm sure, very inspirational to me during that time.
Right, but you wouldn't have been aware that you were working in a power structure that was New York based.
Well, of course it was New York based, but I didn't feel any competition that was negative.
Right. Okay, I have to ask you: did O'Carroll lead to love affair with Carole King?
I did go out with Carole King, yes, and it inspired the song "Oh Carol" in 1959.
Right, and she replied.
O'Neill, yes, a collector's item.
Okay.
People remember that record, but it was a record.
You wouldn't be so egotistical to sing that on stage. O'Neill? Yeah.
I don't think so.
In the you had a lot of hits in the early 60s, and then things kind of you moved into another area, another arena, which was producing songs for people. Was that a lean period that had as part of it depression or turning to drink or drugs or any of that?
No, I never had a drinking or a drug problem.
Right.
It was a good time for me because I didn't tour as much, and in many ways it was a place and a time to be with the family. I had small children that we were raising, and I was able to live an ordinary, normal civilian life.
That's right.
And I did have many great artists and great singers do my songs in those years.
Right.
Of course, it was frustrating. I wanted to go back into the public eye and sing my own, and I did so in the 70s when I went to live in
England.
London.
Yeah. You did, that was Emergence and Trala Days and stuff like that.
Yes, very good. The Emergence is one of my favorites.
Sure, I remember. I bought it. I must be one of the few people over here who bought the copy when it came out.
I was one wondered who that person was.
I expect the check in the post. Okay.
It was one of the best albums I've ever done. Someday it will be re-released.
Sure.
It should be, yeah.
Sure, right, okay. Well, those songs very much reflected a new kind of, well, maybe the fact that you had been living everyday real-life experiences. They were much more mature and adult-focused.
Yes, I think that the melodies certainly were a development of my growth.
Right.
After writing for so many years the same kind of songs, you have to go on and develop.
Mm-hmm.
And also the arrangements were quite extraordinary. I thought the musical arrangements, I'll think of his name in a second. He was quite wonderful on that.
Right.
That Emergence album. I'll think of it after.
Right. Sure, I can check the album. I still have it.
Lee Holdridge.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It was really symphonic. It was beautiful.
Oh, right. Well, that's where you were moving nearer an original bass, or nearer the kind of classical influences, by
That's right.
stretching the 3-minute pop song beyond the boundaries.
That's right.
Right. The last song together was inspired by the breakup with Howard Greenfield, but it's kind of also become a hymn to the loss of innocence, the loss of love, and such like that. It's taken on a universal dimensions.
Howie had that ability. He was able to concise a whole story into his 3.5 minutes. He was a master at that. It was like a little novel,
Right.
beginning to end, a complete story. And yes, our last song together had special meaning, of course, to Howie and I. We were breaking up, but not permanently.
Yeah.
We went back together several years later to write. But at that time, I had wanted to branch out and try some new things.
Right.
That was a very special song.
We had all that other stuff here recently in the tabloids about you being made to deny the stories of being gay. How do you respond to that now?
Well,
I can't even remember where it came from. I just saw a couple of headlines in the News of the World or something.
I was amused by it. I've been married for 30 years to Liba.
Right.
I am straight. Perhaps my high voice all through the years puzzled people. I have many gay friends who Liba and I socialize with, and more power to them.
Right.
I wish them well.
Were you angry at that?
No, I was amused.
Okay. Right. Well, if people are going to judge you on The Voice, that means that kind of every Frankie Valli or any of the others who moved into that territory are going to be similarly brandished. It seems very naive.
It is. It really is foolish.
Right. There's a lot of your other songs, which again were recorded at that period. You things like Solitaire have become anthems for maybe older Irish fans or older all fans.
Oh, nice.
And
well, that's nice to hear. It certainly is a very, very special part of me. And it's nice that I can reach so many people.
Well, I was thinking I listened to an interpretation of that last night when I was getting ready for the interview, and it was like A Long Way from I Go Ape and Steve Sholes and Heartbreak Hotel, in that it was Elvis's last album, and he had a very haunted, almost paranoid version of Solitaire. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I've heard it. It's on the Memphis album.
Yeah.
It's, you describe it well. He also altered the melody, and it just, or the rhythm, that it doesn't do it justice.
I see, right.
Yeah.
Right. But it gives it an added kind of dissonant tension. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
I don't think he would have thought of it in those technical terms, but it gives it an eerily otherworld feel.
Yes, it's. I was certainly flattered that Elvis would do it, but it is a very different interpretation.
Sure. I'm coming down to the last question. On the back of the Tralala Days album, you stand as if not needing to lean on a picture of your 50s self.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you still feel that way, or are you reconciled to the different eras of your career?
I'm very proud of each different period of my career. The early songs will always remain very special and have a warm place in my heart. I was one of the forerunners, and I had a certain kind of sound and a certain kind of song that I cannot deny, nor would I. If not for those songs, I would not be here today. that was one of the reasons on the Timeless album that I wanted to re-record them. Many, a lot of the people, including Polydor, were against me re-recording them.
Right.
They thought that they were classics and should remain that way. But I wanted another chance to do them and to do them in a clearer style with respecting the old arrangements, but yet working with sophisticated equipment as we have today. That would be more more of today's kind of sound.
Right, right. But you don't believe that nostalgia just gets in the way?
Oh, I know that line well. Now that I write my own lyrics, I don't think I would have written that line. Joe, there are so many lines that certainly it was a very close writing partnership with Howie.
Uh-huh.
There were certain things that really didn't come from my soul. I would not say that nostalgia gets in the way today.
Right. Well, I saw recently a broadcast you did in Britain, and I think you had written a lyric about your son, and I found it very moving because I think I referred to my father earlier. He died very young, and I just felt a bit jealous, I suppose. Just a human response. But is that the kind of your lyrics then? That's obviously, that was your lyric, was it, or am I wrong?
Yes, of course.
Right. So that they're clearly coming from what you would call your soul.
Yes, I have a whole new album coming out, but first the single is coming out March the 30th. It's called You Turn Me On, and it's a very different Neil Sedaka. It's very sensual.
Right.
It's very modern. It's very 90s. And I hope, I'm proud of it, I love the new collection that's coming out.
Right, right. Okay, Neil, it was very, very pleasing for me to talk with you as both fan and journalist.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for the call.
I look forward to seeing you when you get here.
Me too.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Hi, Joe Jackson here again, and I thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. As I said, if you want to read the articles based on that chat and the next one we did, check joejacksoninterviewer.com.